Okay, so last week we talked about introduction to wireframing. Um, if from the beginning of this session, from the beginning of this training, we started from introduction to UI UX. We talked about the principles, and in our design, we are actually missing out the principle, especially for the UI. When one of the principles for UI is consistency. But I found out that most times our input field or buttons are not consistent, of which I am dropping comments for us. So, like I said in our previous class, if you want to go with a curvy button, for instance, something like this Google curvy button, you are make sure that all your button is in curvy shape. But if you want to go with the rectangle pattern shape, which is that has that straight, no curve, you can go ahead with that. But just make sure that in your design, the UX process must be consistent and the UI process must be consistent because consistency is one of the UI design principle of which many of us are not applying. Then also one of the design principle we talk about, one of the UI design principle we talk about is typography. Now, most times in our assignment, of which many of us actually did not use a clear font, so that most of us did not use a clear font. So I found it so hard to understand what was written there, like what was written there because of the font choice you use. Of which I also dropped comment and said this font for an application is not going to be readable. This is more like a stylish, font. You need to use a font that your users is going to read, even without coming close or trying to zoom anything on the app. The font should be clear and readable. So most of the font choice we use are actually not clear enough, which we did not imply or apply the UI design principle. So one thing I want to advise us as a designer is whenever we are designing, especially the UI part, we should always go back to the UI principles. Like you need to go back to it, look at it or read it, and then apply the UI principles in your design. Okay, so we talked about that. We talked about method. We've done the method research where we get to understand the user, create user personas, empathy mapping. We've done the user journey. We've done the flow chart. And then yesterday and last week we talked about the wireframing, where we talked about different kinds of wireframe, and we actually carry out the mid fidelity. I said low fidelity actually done on the piece of paper that I wish, but with this is actually a physical class. We're going to craft out our idea on a piece of paper. Then I said, okay, on your own, you should go ahead to craft out your idea on a piece of paper and upload. But unfortunately, nobody actually uploaded on the idea on the group. Well, then also we then moved to mid fidelity, where we actually did the authentication in class. And then I said, okay, go and apply for the home, um, three other screens. And if you think there are any other screen that needed to be added in between each other, you can go ahead and implement that. Most of us actually just did the home, the restaurants, and then the food app. And also some persons actually implemented their own creativity and idea, which was awesome and good. I love the fact that everybody think outside the box to bring up their own solutions and idea, which is good. And then we are done with that. We did some prototyping, and I said this week we are going to go deep into prototyping. So once we start doing the once we start doing the start designing interfaces, like more like if you come to class, this is interface we are going to do. We are going to go deep into prototyping. So we are going to talk about prototyping today. So today's topic is going to be introduction to prototyping. So we've seen what prototype look. Prototype means interaction between screen one, elements inside the screen one to the screen two. So it's an interaction between two or more screens of your UI designs. So prototyping is an experimental process where design teams implement idea into tangible form from paper to digital to digital. Teams build prototypes of variance degrees of fidelity to capture design concept and test on users. Now, when we talked about the low, mid, and high fidelity wireframe, we talked about when we talked about the low fidelity, we said low fidelity designs or wireframes can be done on a piece of paper, and it's going to show the interaction between the first screen and the second screen, of which I show you an image of what it look like. So you're going to connect the screens and you're going to say, okay, this is actually how this is going to work, and you're going to give it out to your user. That also apply on the mid fidelity, which is our assignment, and then we're also going to try out the high fidelity wireframe and add prototype to it. With prototype, you can refine and validate your design so your brand can release the right product. Now, you see one thing about prototype. Prototype will help you know your users better. Imagine done with the low fidelity and you move to the mid fidelity, you've done the prototype and you push it to your user to test. And then you ask questions like, are you able to check out very well? Are you able to, reorder your another meal? Are you able to, navigate through other history? Are you able to complete your profile? Are you able to authenticate easily? You ask questions like this, and then you get response for your user. After they are done interacting with your mid design, your wireframes, your design, they are done interacting with it. And if they are okay, let's say they are not okay and they said, okay, the fonts you use on your mid fidelity was actually difficult for me to read. And this is what another user will tell you, and this is what another user will tell you. So all you have to do is to listen to your user and implement that on your high fidelity, and then do the prototype and push to them. Now, that is why one importance of prototype is actually help you, understand your user. A prototype is a model or a preview of your design that can be used to test the concept or solutions. Now, prototype help you to test your solution. Now, you've understand your user, you've know their problem, you've come up with a solution. How do your user test the solution you came up with? This is where prototype comes in. Depending on the level of your prototype, it might take a form of rough paper or digital sketch that look just a little more detailed than what you came up with during hydration, or it might just be more similar to what a final digital version might look like. Now, from this sentence, you've actually understood why I said that high fidelity are not just 100% of your final design. They are more like 98, 99, 97% of your final design. So the final design is when you are done, when your user are done interacting with the product and they are satisfied with this product. Then you now, add all the necessary image, add everything that are actually missing. Once you add all the elements, you can now push this product to your developer. Either you share the Figma prototype link or Figma design link to them, or you can upload with Zeppelin. But at this stage, you can just use everything on Figma. So you just share the link to them or you give them access to the file. That is it. Now you can create a simple you can create a simple paper prototype by hand. More on this in a moment. Or you might use a prototype tool to create a digital prototype that is more detailed and easy shareable. Most commonly, UX designer build a rapid prototype, whether digital on a piece of paper, and that's implement before they invest time and efforts to build a more detailed digital prototyping. Now, what this means is, this is why I said, as a designer, especially beginners, not even beginners, but as a designers, you need a drawing book, you need a pencil, and you need an eraser. Now, this is where you have to quickly sketch your idea. You don't want to frustrate your user. You want to create a nice solution because these are your users. You understand them. They've tabled their problem for you. As a user, I have tabled my problem I'm having by not eating healthy. I'm always on my system, and once I'm done at the end of the day, there is no time to just go to the market, to come back, quickly prepare a meal. The solution I want, the goals I want, the need I want is I want to be able to, order a food, and once I'm done or I've closed for the day, or let's say I'm rounding up, I should be able to place an order before I'm done for the day. My food will be delivered at my doorstep. Now, that is one need, or that is one goal I want as a user. And now you've you've understood my goal, you've created a solution for it. Now you should be able to, quickly, you've understood my problem. You should be able to quickly sketch a solution, sketch an idea on a piece of paper. This is where low fidelity comes in. And then once you're done, you can say, okay, navigate to this. Okay, not every user is actually going to, understand. And there is no way. Let's say, for example, your target users, things are now moving digitally, that we don't need to, start going to from Kemi's house to Chineye house, from Chineye house to Confidence house. Most of us are in different states, different part of Nigeria. So what we need to do is, and now you want this app, you want this solution to apply to other states in Nigeria. So what you just need to do is, you don't need to snap and upload or share. No, you've done your low fidelity, which is like a quick sketch. So what you're going to do is move this paper sketch or paper idea into the digital part. So once you move it into the digital part, then this is when mid fidelity comes in, and then you do your prototyping. So once you've done the prototyping, you can now share the prototype link, not the design file link, but the prototype link, and you add it and you ask some questions for your users. So once they test this product and you gather their feedback, you can now implement it in the high fidelity. So this is why prototype is very, very important. Like, it's very, very important. Now let's look at the reason for prototyping. What are the reasons for prototyping? One, to give all customers a clear picture of the potential benefits, risks, and costs associated with where a prototype might lead. You don't want to just send them pictures of screen. They might not be able to understand. Tell you, the way we visualize picture and the way we try to interact with something are actually two different things. Now, if you just send your users picture of how your screen look like, they might not interact with it they might not understand it, to understand the UX part. But you as a designer, you want them to interact so that they will have a clear picture of how their potential benefits, risks, and costs is going to, take. Now, number two is to adapt to change early if there are any major or minor changes in the prototype. Now, this is why I said it's very important for you to ignore this thing called shortcuts. I want to do mid fidelity and I want to do low fidelity and jump to the high fidelity. You might not even know the changes, that maybe you might not know the errors. You might not know if this thing requires changes. You might not even know. Imagine building a product just like most of us are trying to say, using a shortcut. You use a shortcut to build a product. You're going to have, like, your product, you're going to come back. Now you're going to come back. If you remember when I made an example about a client that followed the due process and a client that did not follow the due process, you know how leads turn out to be. So that is the same thing. You might not know how, you might not understand that you might not know that, or you might not find out that there are errors that needs to apply. For example, if the checkout process is frustrating for users and you do not find out, let's say, for example, you actually designed or came up with a concept that was frustrating for the user. Let me use checkout process. It was actually frustrating for a user. Imagine a user that doesn't have card. Imagine a user that doesn't have card. It only says cash on delivery or transfer. There is no card payment. There's no card payment. Now we have three methods of payment, but there is no card. What was there was just bank transfer and cash on delivery. Now this is what it will take now. Now we are in the world of now let me use myself as a user. Where I'm going to go to ATM is very far. I will have to pay transport of 150 going to get to any nearest ATM or maybe bank. And secondly, POS. Now POS is actually not close to me. I will have to trek. Now it's actually sunny. I will have to trek under the sun to go get the cash because I don't have any bank app. For example, I don't have any bank app, or none of my bank app is actually working. So the only option I have now as a user is, because of your app does not give me payment method for card. So the only option I have is cash on delivery. So now I will have to face one of these. Either I trek under this hot sun to go and use POS and I'll have to pay charge, or I'll have to pay transport to go to any nearest ATM. You get? So as a user, by the time I will use it, will tell me, oh, I want to even order food of 5,000. I will pay charge, for example, 200. Or then what if I get to that ATM? There's no money. So as a user, this is what your user is actually going to think. And your user will say, since there's no bank, since there's no card option, don't worry. Let me just go and sort myself out. You can see that this is frustrating for the user. But let's assume that you not tackle this thing at that that wireframe stage, and you just move where the developer will actually implement this code. You see that if this product is actually up and running and then you tackle this, it will not make you have to go back. But if you notice this error at the early stage, you can just quickly implement it. Oh, there should be an option for card payment for user. What about user that their bank app are not working? Sometimes there was a time when I was having my UBA app was having issues. Oh God, it was actually frustrating. That was when I knew that then imagine you that is not a designer. How will you feel? My bank app was my bank app was so bad that the nearest UBA bank close to me was, I have to pay transport like 700 naira to that place. Sorry, 800 naira going and coming to that place. And I don't have a damn cash with me. I don't even have ATM. I tried to link my account with OPay. Now, there's something that OPay did. OPay has this access where you can link your bank card, your bank account, not card, your bank account. My app was disturbing. I don't have a card. Now, as a designer, that was when I knew that I actually understand the frustration. But imagine someone that is not even a designer. How will you feel? The frustration self is going to be the worst, because you might not even understand that pattern. Now, I tried to link my bank card with OPay. It was saying something OTP, and now the same bank app is OTP. So all I have to do was to update my phone number. Now you can see that my phone number was not giving OTP. All I have to do was go to the bank, and I don't have the cash with me. I don't have card. There's nothing in my other bank account. The only money I have was in my UBA. I have to borrow. Now you can imagine that kind of situation for a user. I had to borrow money to transport myself to the bank, resolve the issue, and then I now use the opportunity to request it for ATM card. So you can see that, imagine you've gone to the bank and you try to withdraw, and they'll tell you, with the situation of things is, they'll tell you, we cannot give you 5,000. Please go outside to use the machine or POS, and you don't have a card, and then they're telling you that card is not available. What if you find yourself in this kind of situation? How will you feel as a user? Let's put designer's idea once. How will you feel as a user? So these are things that we need to, as a designer, come up. Like, these are minor errors that you might tackle, and then you implement the change at the early stage. That is why I said, sometimes I said, instead of following shortcut, why not follow the normal process? It's easier that way. Ignore shortcuts. Now, the next one we have is to take feedback from user and make necessary changes. I've even explained it too. Take feedback from user. Imagine a user that doesn't have a card. I'll tell you, because your app did not give me a card, there's no way I'm going to use the app. So take feedback from users and make the necessary changes. Now, the next one we have is to save the cost of manufacturing the actual product in the early stage of experimenting. I've already explained it. Now, the cost of preventing is less than the cost of correction and cost of failure. I've explained it. It's better for you to prevent this thing and spend less than not preventing it. You just, follow the shortcut and you jump. You have to come back and you spend more. What are the different types of prototype we have? Different kinds of prototype. We have the low fidelity. It's just the same way as for the wireframing. It's just the same. Just that I will say in my own opinion, wireframe and prototype are Wireframe and prototype are twin with different sense. You get, are twin with different action, are twin with different gender. They are twin because wireframing and prototype actually works together. They are twin. They came out from one placenta, but they have different sense and different, genotype. I'm just using um a human being, for example. But I'm just, when I'm explaining something for you, I will have to use something that we always see, we always know, so that you understand more of these words together. So wireframe and prototype, they are twins. They are just twins. They come out from, one placenta, produce both of them, but they have different sense, different um actions, different gender and all. So the same way we say prototype work is the same way wireframe too does. But just that their work are actually different. Their work that they do, like things they do, are actually different, but they are of the same, being. Now, types of prototype, we have the low fidelity prototype, which I told you that if you just sketch something on a piece of paper, you just, it's not working. It's just something that you said, okay, let me take you to our first image. It's just like if you say actually an image, draw, you just draw this here. You can just say, okay, I'm going to move it this way, and you just draw your arrow. You get. So that is how paper, not low fidelity prototype look. These are the simple non-working model of prototype. Quick to produce due to simple model. Inexpensive due not much time, effort, resources. Sorry about that. So then unrealistic because it is not a working model. It's not working. It's just something that please, I don't know who is that person. Mute, please. Thank you. So low fidelity prototype is just something you just quickly produce. That is why, as a designer, you see this low fidelity like sketch on a piece of paper. Like after you're done with your fidelity and then you're doing your sketch on a piece of paper. Trust me, this is where you're going to have ideas like the ideas are going to just start coming in, and you just quickly start drawing it. Oh, I want my search to be there. I don't want to put on the button navigation. I want my button to be, to be this position. Oh, I want the sliders to be this way. I want this card to be vertical. I want it to be horizontal. This is something you're just, sketching, and this is how it's going to be. Now you can see that this is how low fidelity looks like. So it doesn't tell how the shape of your button look like. No. What it just talks about is the structure of it just talk about the structure basically, and how you think your user are going to navigate through the app. So that's it. So this is how a low fidelity prototype look like. This is it. So this is just it. So now imagine you want to interact with your user and you're sending your user this. Imagine you want to send the user this. No user will understand. They will just see it as, a picture or maybe an image or something. They will just see it as a picture. They will not understand it. But this is what a low fidelity prototype look like. You can see that the prototype was just done with red biro, while the screen was done with black biro. Okay. Maybe if there are anything you need to add there, you just use blue pen to do it. But as a designer, you can do something. This can be done if you're in a team of other members. You can do this pattern in a team, and mostly these are being brought up, even if it's virtually, but more of it's going to be interesting, more like if it's a physical gathering where you guys are going to put your heads together and you explain and you're giving detail of the card information and all. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is the mid-fidelity prototype. Now, we talked about the wire flow. We talked about the wire flow. So this is what it actually means. mid-fidelity wireframe. Then let's go back to flowchart where we'll talk about types of flowchart and we'll talk about wire flow. Now you can see that wire flow, mid-fidelity wireframe, and mid-fidelity prototype. These are two combinations that makes up wire flow. One element from screen 1 to screen 2, element from screen 2 to screen 3. So this is actually a mid fidelity. It is the next level to the low fidelity prototype. I don't know why I'm saying prototype. Prototype is actually an application that help you prototype your work. It's an application, but let's just focus on Figma. It does the same thing as prototyping your design on Figma. It's actually called a prototype, and it's a course. So I don't know why I'm always saying prototype, but it's actually a different thing. So it is the next level to the low fidelity prototype with some functions often called a wireframe. This is also a quick process because of less work and effort. You can see that you are now bringing your low fidelity into the tool, and now instead of using just boxes and lines and shape and those things, this one is now having there's no color at all. It's just gray, black, and white. You're not adding text. You're not adding, you're not giving it the shape of how you want your button to look like, the alignment, the spacing, it's not something that you need to, start thinking from scratch. It's something that you've already done on a piece of paper and now you are implementing it. This is more reason in it due to some function and it's now functioning. So if I click on the button, where does it take me to? If I move this, where does it take me to? So you can see that it has some function in it. There is no fine detail. There's no fine detailing provided in this prototype. Now, what this means actually means you're not adding image, you're not adding colors, but everything is just aligned, just like what we did in our assignment. Everything is just aligned. Everything is you use the right fonts, a font that is readable. You use the right width if it's width. Sorry, the right weight. If the fonts, if particularly say your typography, you want it to be regular, you use regular, which is actually readable. If you're using maybe Pumpkins, Roboto, Inter, Outfit, Urban List, BR Framer, I'm just giving you some fonts. You can say, okay, I'm going to use regular, which is actually readable. Now, this is what a mid fidelity looks like. This is the replica of our assignment. So this is what it looks like. So this is mid fidelity or middle fidelity prototype. Now you can see that prototype and the wireframe. You can see that I said that they are twins, but their action, their sense are two different things, but they work together. They work together, they come up together, and what they are doing are different things. They are like the elder twin and the younger twin, they work together to come up with this. And it's also a wire. This is like a wire flow. This is a wire flow, right? If you're calling types of flow chart, this falls under wire flow. But this is the display of what a mid prototype look like. Now let's talk about the high fidelity prototyping. After many rounds of low and medium fidelity prototype, then it is time to produce the high fidelity. It has all the function of a product with a realistic experience. This is the working model so that they can test the final product working to get the proper feedback and necessary changes. Now, let's talk about this. Now, this is a high fidelity. It has the color, it has everything. Now, this is how, once you're done with this, when you are done with this, you push to the user with your prototype link, you've asked some questions, you've gathered the feedback. You're going to implement the feedback that you've gathered into your high fidelity design. So when you implement it into your high fidelity design, this is where you will now have to, implement it like you've done the changes. This is when you're not going to edit or correct your prototype, your flow, your flow, your interaction. This is where you're going to correct it, and then you now push back to this your user. I mean, when not random kind of user. Now, all products, when building a product, you have your target users, your target audience. So these are the people you're going to work with. Okay, so these are the people that you've interviewed. These are the same people you are going to, send your mid fidelity prototype to with questions related to the app. They've answered it, they've given you your feedback. You will gather this their feedback, implement it in your high fidelity. When you've done that, you're also going to implement, the corrections and everything, and then you push to the same persons. So when you get a positive feedback like I am satisfied when trying to check out on this product. Yeah, it is seamless process. There was no this, there was no that. Everything is okay. That is when you now have to impute the right, make it 100% final design before you can now push to the developer. Now let's talk about the prototype and final product. What is the difference between these two? The key difference between a prototype and a final product lies in their purpose, fidelity, and stages of development within the design process. A prototype is an early version or representation of a product or system or platform or design that is casted to test and validate design concepts, gathering feedback, and iterate on ideas before proceeding to final production. Prototype can vary in fidelity, ranging from low fidelity sketches or wireframes to high fidelity interactive mockups. They are used to exploit different design solutions, validate usability, and identify potential issues or improvements in the user experience. Prototypes are tropically created. Now, let me explain before I read further. Now, you see people saying, I'm done with my high fidelity. Let me send it to the developers. Now, let's say you've implemented the corrections, you've added the right image, you now push your high fidelity. Let's say you don't add your image, you just push the high fidelity, um, you push the high fidelity design to your developer. Let's say in a situation where, let me come back to the designer. You see that this space now that is here now is, and you don't add image, you just push it to the developer. Now, how will the developer know that the dimension for this image is going to be? What if the dimension of the image that was sent to you is actually longer than your phone frame, and when the developer is trying to put it and mistakenly stretch the image and it's just there? So when this product is now up and running, you see that the image is going to be stretched is because you just left it this way and you just tell the developer, I'm going to send you image, play around with it. It doesn't make sense. You as a designer, you are the one that's supposed to know what dimension, what kind of image is going to fit the dimension given. You get? So that is why I said when it comes to high fidelity is actually different from the final product. So final production is something that is 100% ready and you're going to move to the developers, and that is what your developers or the developers are actually going to implement the final product before you can now see it on the website, on the browser, or on the app store. Okay, so they are this now for prototype. They are used to explore ideas. You can explore your ideas, understand usability testing, come up with solutions. Well, come up with solutions, come up with creativity, come up with everything. Know how to improve your users, all those things. Now, they are created and are not intended for public release or commercial use. Now, this is for the prototype stage. They are not for public release or for commercial use because it is not actually the final stage. Now, a final product is fully developed and refined version of a design that is ready for release to users or customer. It represents the high point of the design process, feedbacks, and incorporating feedbacks from prototype, addressing any issue or concern, and meeting the specific requirements and objectives. Final products are published, functional, and often include additional features or enhancements that were not present in the prototype. They undergo rigorous testing and quality assurance processing to ensure that they meet performance standards and deliver a seamless user experience. So now from these two, now you understand the difference between the prototype and the final product. So final product are actually released and are fully 100% developed and are for the public use. So that's why I said once you're done with your high fidelity, once you are done with your high fidelity, once you're done, you don't even need to duplicate or anything. But if there are need for you to duplicate, where you need to implement what your users feedback, that is when you now have to implement. When you implement it, you put the necessary email that are going to fit those dimensions, implement the correction, and then push to the developers, and then they will implement what you've given to them. So do we have any question? Okay, before I ask question, let me say in summary, prototype are tools used to test and refine design concept, while final products are the complete and polished versions of those designs that are ready for use. So yeah, ready for use. So do we have any question to ask concerning prototype? Do we have any question to ask concerning prototype? Can you guys hear me? Do we have any question to ask? Okay, so if there are no questions to ask, let's move to the next stage.